Foxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Scraptember, where we are using florals today. It's also Iron Crafter Challenge, where we're supposed to be using at least 50 enamel dots. And it's also mixed media mayhem. This is the inspiration from Selma at Just Create and Scrap. I've got some white paper here that I'm going to go ahead and put a layer of gesso on because I know I'm going to be doing some mixed media with a bit of water. So I want to make sure that I can move that water around just a bit because I'm using some gelatos, and I'm actually using a product that is new to me. They are the Stabilo Woody pencils, and they are a three-in-one pencil where they act like a watercolor. You can color with them, and you can color on surfaces like glass and that kind of stuff. You can also um, do like mark making with them and that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's what is in my hand there or off to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and just create some circles here, which is very similar to what is on the inspiration layout. A lot of that's going to get covered by these two flourishes that I have. These are really old um, Tim Holtz grunge board flourishes, and I don't have hardly any of that left. I think these might be the last two pieces of grunge board that I have, but I thought I'd go ahead and get them on this page and out of my stash. And I really like the way that they end up looking. I am going to mixed media those up just a bit as well to give them some color and shine. Really liking the Stabilo Woodies. If I were to put them on the paper without the gesso on, they would probably still have some of the lines from rubbing it onto the paper, and then it would still pick up some of the pigment. It wouldn't be quite as watercolory as it is, and this is the effect I was going for, which is why I gessoed my paper. My paper is not going to lay flat because I did gesso it, so it does have a little bit of a warp to it. I'm not too worried about it when it goes into the page protector. It should be just fine. Um, if I were worried about it, I would have uh, mounted my paper onto some sort of non-porous board, which I use like a foam board that's covered in packing tape to kind of protect the foam board from absorbing everything. And then I let it dry overnight, and then it usually comes up pretty flat. But I am at a retreat, and I didn't bring that with me, and I'm not too concerned about it, so I'm just going to keep going. I did also add some gesso to the grunge board. The gesso I am using is from Art Basics or Finnabair, which is a Prima product. And I borrowed this from a friend of mine because I forgot to bring my gesso with me. So thank you, Janie, for loaning that to me. Putting a nice heavy coating on and letting that dry before I do my mixed media on it. I am going to pull out some gelatos to use for the mixed media on this rather than using the Stabilo Woodies. And the main reason for that is I didn't have the same colors, or the colors that I wanted to use were in the gelatos. And I'm just rubbing them on top of the product here, or the grunge board. And because I've gessoed it, I'm going to be able to just add a little water, and it's going to have that same watercolor effect rather than having like a crayon scribble mark on the grunge board. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. This set of gelatos is new to me. It's their gift set 2. I think it's called Dolce. And I'm using like a navy blue, um, a silvery color, and white. And I'll link those down below, or the gift set down below for you, and call out what colors I actually used for this in case you're interested in that. So far, I'm liking how this is looking. I kind of tried to give it a kind of, I don't want to say a swirl effect, but a mottled effect so it doesn't have like it's not all silver, all blue, or all white. I just want it to kind of have a variation. So a little bit grungy, but some of these have a little sparkle in them. So um, really liking the metallic on this layout, giving it a little bit of sparkle. The photo that I'm using is of my niece and her middle child, and these were taken early in December, so it's wintry and cold. I don't know if she took these in Idaho or not. I actually didn't get that information before filming this, but she did ask me to scrapbook this picture of them, and it's a super cute picture. I apologize you don't get to see their faces. I have to block those out for privacy purposes, but they're all snuggled in together and cozy, but they're out and about. So I thought that was super cute to give it this kind of wintry feel. So I'm constantly going back and checking to see where my photos fit with the other elements that I'm putting on the page, making sure I've got my mixed media where I want it. I know I'm going to be adding more mixed media. I'm just trying to figure out the placement of that as I go, and figuring out where the photo is going to fit the best so that I don't worry about doing a bunch of mixed media under it. And I'm thinking it needs to be a little bit more blue, so I'm going to keep going over that just to give it a little bit more uh, vibrancy, basically. And then I know I'm going to be adding more, but I'm not I'm not really sure on the placement. I keep looking back at the inspiration piece. I know mine's not going to look exactly like it, and that's totally okay. I feel like it doesn't have to be exact. When it comes to an inspiration piece or even a sketch, I feel like it's a starting out point or a jumping off point where I can just take the inspiration that I want from it and make it my own. My intention is not to 100% duplicate it. It's just to get an idea of what I want, um, or uh, a starting off point, and then it kind of morphs into what I want it to be. And that way I feel like it's my own and not necessarily just a lift of somebody else's work. There is absolutely nothing wrong with lifting someone else's work. I am just at a point where I don't feel like I need to lift all the time. I feel like I want to put my own spin on things. And I think that's part of the learning process personally. When you're first learning, it might be a better idea to go ahead and lift and till you're comfortable with the techniques or the products. But once you are feeling more confident and comfortable, you know, branch out and try to make it your own a little bit more. So I'm just going with some watery circles. I did have stamps out. You can see off to the right hand side, there's an inky circular stamp there. I had several other ones that I brought, but I don't end up using them. I do end up using a couple of the other stamps that are in these sets, but I don't end up using any, well, most of the circles. I do end up using, I think, two circles, and then I use some ones that are just some textured little dots and that kind of stuff. I'm also going to do some splatter just to give a little bit more texture to this layout. And then I've got some opaque matte texture paste from Ranger, and I'm using a couple of different stencils. These are, I believe, both from the Crafters Workshop, um, doing some actual little circular rings and then some actual dots that are imperfect dots. They're not like polka dots, they're just imperfect dots. Actually, that dot one might be an Echo Park one. But if they're still available, I will link them down below. Not really 100% sure of that. I'm also using some All and Create stamps, like I mentioned before, to give a little added texture to this layout. And I was trying to find an ink pad that I had with me that is waterproof. And so I have this little teardrop memento tuxedo black ink pad that is waterproof. So I pulled that out because I know I could potentially be adding more moisture to this layout, and I didn't want that black ink to run. So I did test it on a separate piece of paper to make sure that it's not going to turn into black puddles of ink if I stamp it on here. The Distress inks that you see off to the right hand side, those are water-based and water reactive. So those ones were not going to be a good option. And thankfully I carry this little tuxedo black ink in my caddy because I didn't think to pack another ink that was water resistant. So this is a good option. It's also a great option if you're into Copic markers. That Memento ink is a great one to do stamping with when you're using your Copics. So, which is originally why I had that ink pad in there. I do have a text stamp. This is also from All and Create. These little ink or stamp pads, stamps, not stamp pads, stamps that I'm using are all from the All and Create company, and I will link those down below as well. so that you can check those out if they are available. So adding a couple of bubbles here and there. Um, the background was absolutely perfectly fine without adding any stamps. So if that was a good place that you would want to stop, there's nothing wrong with that. But I decided to go ahead and add a little bit more texture to my background, and I think it looks pretty cool. I'm trying not to be too, um, oh my goodness, I'm trying to kind of have a random stamping pattern without being, too lined up or calculated as to how far apart they're supposed to be. I did stamp off some Juniper Mist Catherine Pooler ink to the side, and when I sprayed it to add water, you saw a little bit of splatter come over onto my layout. So I am just using it to my advantage and splattering more of that Juniper Mist and giving it a little bit of a finer splatter, which is why I use the fan brush, because the fan brush always gives a finer mist than my round brush. I am inking up a piece of um, photo, the photo mats from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to use that as a photo mat for my photo, but I used more of the Juniper Mist, but the blue was not quite the right blue, so I also used one of the Stabilo Woody pencils to make it the right blue. So I'm kind of playing around with that idea right now and figuring out what I need to do to make it match just a little bit better. So once I got the color to match a little better, I trimmed down my photo a bit because I decided it needed a white border between the white or between the photo and the blue mat that I just created. So I'm going to put a really thin border of white in between the two just to make it pop a little bit more. And I really like the way that it ends up looking. The photo is a little bit more prominent that way and pops off the page just a little bit more. So um, that makes me really happy because that's, of course, the focal point of the entire layout, right? So I think it's got a really good uh, pop. I did also use my navy blue Muji pen and I did a sketchy line all the way around the outside of my layout. When you see the close-ups of this layout, the layout does have a bend at the top of it, so you're going to see part of my desk as well. I apologize for that, but I didn't bring my Mink machine, which is sometimes where I will run my mixed media piece through to flatten it out, or sometimes I tape it down to make sure that it dries nice and flat, but I didn't do any of that, so it definitely has a little warp to it, like I mentioned before. Using those Stabilo Woody or pencils again to pick up a little ink and color up my stamped images, my stamped bubbles. I think they look really cool and really fun. This would be a great layout for a bathtub photo. It would be great for doing bubbles outside, but I'm going to keep it for a wintry layout and hopefully it still looks wintry when I'm all done. And since I'm doing Scraptember, I needed to add in some florals, so I pulled in these florals from the I think I want to say Wild at Heart, but I could be totally wrong on that. But it's one of the Pretty Little Studio collections. And then came the task of adding my 50 enamel dots. That was the requirement for the Iron Crafter Challenge. So not just enamel dots, you couldn't just put one or two or three, you had to do at least 50. So I brought my whole ring of enamel dots and pulled out a few different colors. I have, I think, four colors here. I've got this purple, a light blue, and a kind of corally peach, and then a more yellowy peach, which match the florals that I'm using. So I think that's going to work well. I just have to figure out the placement of them to make them not look like they are just an afterthought on my layout. I want them to look like they belong there, and I think when all is said and done, it actually looks really nice, and I'm really pleased with the outcome of it. I tried to avoid the flowers that are um, heavy in the yellows. There is a yellow center in this blue flower that is in the upper right-hand corner, but there are a couple of clusters that have more yellow flowers on them. I tried to avoid that and stick more with the peach, the blue, and the purple. And I am pretty happy with how that turned out. I did go back and um, add a little bit of liquid glue to a couple of the enamel dots that were overlapping the texture paste, but I didn't add any liquid glue to any of the other ones, and they seem to be holding fine on top of the gesso. So I'm going to keep an eye on that and make sure they don't fall off before giving it to my niece. And if they look like they're coming off, then I will add a little bit of liquid glue. With mixed media, sometimes the liquid glue is the best answer, or glue dots. Glue dots work as well. But I didn't bring, well, I have some small glue dots. I just don't know if I have enough to do 50 enamel dots, as well as anything else I want to do over the weekend. So liquid glue it is in case things feel like they're going to be coming off. Some of these have a bit of a pearlescent look to them, which kind of gives it a little bit of a shimmer. And then the other ones are flat, and I mixed the two. I don't think it's any problem. And I am liking the way it is coming together. I want to remind you while I do my final bit of embellishing here that there are a bunch of people playing along with Mixed Media Mayhem. And there is a playlist link down below for that, so you can go and check them out. There is also a playlist for Scraptember down below, so you can go and check out the videos that have been released so far this month. And they're going to have different prompts besides flowers. The ones for today would be flowers, but the rest of the month, each day, there was a different prompt. And for the Iron Crafter, you will see links to everyone who is playing along using enamel dots and hopefully get some ideas on different ways to use your enamel dots. So, or some inspiration on layouts that might use enamel dots. So, I apologize that I'm kind of all over the place with my voiceover. My laptop, I've had to restart it 2 times. It's not been a very having a happy morning. I think I need to go in and do a little cleanup on the hard drive. So my apologies for that if I've repeated myself once or twice on things because there's been a lot of time in between voicing the first portion of the video versus the last portion. So I'm just going to get the rest of these little enamel dots on here, and then you'll be seeing the close-up shots. And that is pretty much going to do it, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for watching today. I really appreciate that you spent some time with me today. Stick around for the close-ups. They'll be up in just a few moments. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, I hope that you would consider subscribing and coming back and checking out what I have for you again in just a couple of days. I will see you guys again real soon. Take care and have a great day.